This is a mock interview conducted by ForumIAS Academy at New Delhi. The interview panel includes eminent academicians, retired bureaucrats, and other luminaries. The objective of program is to acquaint the candidate with the format and expectations of the personality test conducted by UPSC.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So where are you speaking from?
So I'm currently in my hometown, Faizabad, Ayodhya.
We're in Faizabad.
Yes, sir.
So Faizabad festivals have, or you call it Ayodhya festivals have made the Chief Minister say that we are going to have Utsav Pradesh.
Yes, sir.
Huh? Did he mean so many lamps is make Utsav or something else?
So I believe that Uttar Pradesh has so many cultural heritage and very distinct culture of its own. For example, Ayodhya by itself is a representative of so many religions and so many heritage centers. And if we actually look at the state overall, there are so many things that can be celebrated. There's the Magh Mela that was celebrated recently. So I believe that upholding that spirit was what Chief Minister meant to say by Uttar Pradesh being Utsav Pradesh.
You have done economics
Yes.
in your graduation.
Yes, sir.
Now, are you following economic activities that are happening around in the world?
Yes, sir.
Recently, 3 banks failed in US, and another in Switzerland. They had to be bought over by another bank.
Yes, sir.
Why all this happened?
So first and foremost, the banking collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank in US, that was in the startup sector. And it happened primarily because one, the US Federal Reserve rate hikes that really led to restriction of cash flows for startups. So it was a classic case of bank run, wherein all the depositors started coming back to the Silicon Valley Bank to demand their deposits back. And because of the interest rate hikes, it also led to investment losses on part of
No, you
Silicon
made
Valley
two
Bank
statements.
itself.
You made 2 statements. You said
Yes.
that the interest rates went up, and that is why there was no loan available to the startups.
Yes.
Now you are saying they want to get their money back
Yes.
from the bank. Don't you think this is a contradiction in it?
So first and foremost, when I said that there was a cash flow problem, primarily because the IPO market and the markets overall were seeing a backlash with respect to the interest rate hikes. So with respect to startups, they could not really find cash flows with respect to IPOs and share market overall. And secondly, the point that I mentioned about bank run was because they had deposited certain amount of money in Silicon Valley Bank, so they started getting back to their deposits so that they could cater to their day-to-day expenses.
Now they say that the interest rate went up, and that is how the securities rates came down.
Yes, sir.
How can it happen? What is the mechanism that by which it happens?
So I think the bearing of interest rate hike, it had a bearing on the bond market overall, primarily because the rate of returns with respect to the investments made by generally banks also make their investment to earn extra incomes. So what happened was with respective rate hikes, the bond market suffered a lot, which led to
Why it suffered?
So
Because that
because
is
of
a different separate activity.
Yes.
The bank loan for new loans, of course, they will be influenced. But why the bond markets should suffer?
So primarily because of bond yield, so I'm not very sure of the exact reasons. I will definitely look into it furthermore.
Okay. Recently, the World Bank issued a report, and they
Yes.
said that the decade 2020-30 could be a lost decade.
Yes, sir.
Why they said it?
So primarily because the World Bank anticipates that because of the crisis that emerged due to COVID-19 pandemic, and then that was further compounded by Russia-Ukraine war. So overall, the growth prospects of global potential GDP has narrowed down to 3 decades low. And the World Bank is is anticipating that the global potential GDP growth rate would only be 2.2%, which is 30 years low. And this is primarily because of the overall poly crisis that has emerged. So that is the major reason.
But we have been our Reserve Bank has been claiming that we are going up. We are going to get more than 6% growth. Are we really being over optimistic?
So even in the report that World Bank did came out with, India and the South Asian region is termed to be the fastest growing emerging market and developing economies. And as has been mentioned by IMF, India has been the bright spot in overall global economic scenario, primarily because of Indian economy's resilience, the health of the banking sector, and the overall structural reforms pursued by the government. So
But why do you think? What is the reason why Indian economy is claimed to be doing very well?
So, first and foremost would be the focus on the structural reforms by the government, and this has also been mentioned by the Economic Survey. Because of the global headwinds, Indian economy has remained to be resilient, primarily because of its excessive focus on capital infrastructure and capital expenditure, and also secondly because Indian economy, specifically in the Russia-Ukraine war, India has not taken a stance. So it is maintaining relations with Russia as well as the Western countries. So the foreign policy has also affected the well-being of Indian economy.
Well, you might have seen so many states have already issued their budget. After the union budget came, so many states have done it. And
Yes.
union budget says it is 10 lakh crores they are going to spend in infrastructure and capital. States
Yes.
also they are doing it, but they are the actual capital expenditure estimated is going to be low and low. And if you have more capital expenditure, it will be because of the loan you
Yes.
take. And taking loan, Rinam Kirta Ghritam Pibe, the concept that was said once for individual, it could be applied to a country also. So do you think it is wise to keep on investing in things like roads, whose returns may be maybe really limited as long as you don't have real manufacturing sector, booming manufacturing sector. So as long as our manufacturing sector doesn't boom, the railway, the roads and other infrastructure in this investment may not be really a very good idea. I don't think we are somewhere we are missing the main issue.
So I agree with whatever you said. It is often argued that Indian economy currently has a larger degree of rural distress and urban distress with respect to the demand side of the economy, and focusing immensely on the supply side. The benefits of supply side and infrastructural investments will come in with a lag, and as the government has put it there, they are anticipating a multiplier effect. But by and large, I think there needs to be a balance. We need to have an equal focus on the demand side as well. And secondly, the structural transformation of India after the 91 reforms, there was a quantum jump with from agricultural dominant economy to service oriented economy, which actually hints at the lack of industrial base in India. So with excessive focus on supply side and infrastructural projects, we're essentially making the foundation to establish the industrial base. So I believe
So
that
do you remember what is the percentage contribution of service sector, manufacturing sector, and agriculture sector?
so services sector contributes 54% to the GDP. Agriculture contributes 18%, and the rest is
I heard somewhere it is 45%.
so 45% is the workforce, the employability portion. So agriculture is the major employer in the economy, even after 75
So
years of independence.
45% labor and contributes only 20%, 15-20%, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So don't you think that is the area where our budget should be really focusing on?
Yes, sir, absolutely. We actually need to absorb the surplus labor in agriculture, and we need to divert them into food processing industries, into manufacturing and other localizing the manufacturing and industrialization. And I believe that states cooperation, as you mentioned earlier, that states are also increasing their capital expenditure. This will go a long way in ensuring that there's actual implementation of all these reforms.
Okay. Now, look, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they were born almost together.
Yes, sir.
Now, we are aspiring to be the world power, maybe first few among the top. But countries like Sri Lanka, like in Pakistan, they're almost becoming a failed state. Where they went wrong and we did not.
So I believe that
As
we
an
should.
economist, as an economist.
Yes, sir. So I believe we should take this case by case. Talking about Sri Lanka and its recent crisis, it has been argued that Sri Lankan fiscal policy forbearance and the budgetary operations were the major reasons for its overall economic crisis. With respect to the reforms that they brought in, bringing in organic farming altogether, and also tourism
No,
industry
that means
collapse.
there is no
Yes, sir.
resilience. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
if say by one or two acts in the situation, if the country goes bankrupt, that means there was no resilience. So that means long-term policies might have also made a difference. You can't really focus on one or two incidents.
So, but talking about Sri Lanka in particular, it is a very small economy one, and it is heavily tourism oriented developing economy. So the nature of the economy of countries like Sri Lanka or Pakistan, they are very different. So if I were to assess the economic prowess of these countries, the policies, the institutions do play a role. And Sri Lanka, as has been known, the civil war and of course the overall political instability recently, these are also very crucial factors that determine the economic prowess of a country. So it's not just the economic terms, but also the institutional stability, the political stability, and the societal fabric of a country that makes the difference. So I mentioned that if we were to assess countries, specifically the countries, our neighboring ones, Sri Lanka and Pakistan, it's not just the economic prowess, but also the societal fabric, the institutions in place, the political stability, all of it matters in the economic growth of a country. So, for example, Pakistan also faces a lot of political instability. Same is the case with Sri Lanka as well. So, it's not just we cannot really judge economic prowess of a country on by isolating the economic factors. We have to look at case by case and with entirety.
So I've got only two more questions to ask.
Yes.
One is regarding China is our on the north,
Yes.
and you move little ahead. There is Pakistan, then Iran, then Saudi Arabia. All these are becoming allies, and these are important neighbors for us.
Yes.
And if we really don't care for them, we might really have to face it. So, what India's response should be in this regard?
So, in the recent Saudi Arabia Iran deal brokered by China, India has still not commented anything. However, it has been argued by several experts, and even I believe so, that India should actually seize this opportunity because Iran increasingly is coming out of the shadows. For example, the US is also not very much restrictive on Iran anymore. And specifically talking about our cooperation, connectivity with the Central Asian region, Iran is a very important partner in that case. So I believe that India should be proactive and should effectively engage. We already have good relations with Saudi Arabia, and we should also engage with Iran
But don't you think we
constructively.
have already missed the bus? Chinese came and they have already brokered peace between them, and we were much closer to Iran and Saudi Arabia. We could
Yes.
have also done the same thing, isn't it? And would have gone credit for it. So, do you think we have lost our influence there?
So I believe that the Western pressure in India with respect to corroborating with its ideals as well is something that has restricted our proactive foreign policy. However, I think it's still
So,
not
you
a.
agree that there was a pressure, Western pressure.
So I think
Government don't accept that there is Western pressure.
so compared to China, we do have Western pressure. And I believe that that was the primary reason why we missed this opportunity. However, so I think that we can actually constructively engage with Iran even now. So that's.
Yeah, Vidushi.
Yes.
So you love watching anime, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So how is this anime different from other type of animations?
So first and foremost, anime is any animation that emerges from Japan. And secondly, for me, anime is starkly different from animation from rest of the world, primarily because one, it has a very distinct style of animation, and its storylines are uncomparable. And also, it does not really corroborate to the real world constraints, as is seen in the Western animations of Disney Pixar. So there's infinite number of character designs and storyboards in anime, which makes it very interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking to you. That
Yes.
anime originated from Japan,
Yes.
and it has got a distinct style of animation. What
Yes.
is that distinct style that they follow, which differentiates anime from other animations?
So I believe that other animations now are following CGI and VFX. I'm not very well versed with the technologies involved. However, anime has storyboards, which is essentially painting, digital paintings or hand paintings, and the animation is revolving around that. I'm not very well versed with the technologies involved.
Now, when you look at Naruto and Avatar movie,
Yes, yes.
what is the stark difference between the style of animation in these two creations?
So first is the 3D effect that comes in with Avatar-like movies, and also there's a huge budget expenditure with respect to the movies that are Western in origin, and anime has very restricted budget, and yet they make things very interesting. So I believe these would be the 2 points.
There are three distinct features of anime that differentiates anime from other anime. You got to read about it, right? There's a
Yes.
flat animation, limited animation, and suspension
Yes.
of time. These are the three things that is there. Any global award in this field that you are aware of?
So the works of Hayao Miyazaki, Spirited Away, it was awarded the Academy Award in 2002. So that is one of that I'm aware of. And there's also Animage magazine, which releases awards on an annual basis. These are the 2 that I'm aware of.
You must have read in newspaper that there is a huge protest in Israel.
Yes, sir.
What is the reason behind that protest?
So the protests in Israel are with respect to the judicial reforms brought in by the government, and the reforms are that one, the executive appointed Supreme Court members will now have a majority of 7:4. And second is that the Parliament Knesset of Israel, it can overrule any of the Supreme Court's ruling with just a simple majority. And lastly, it restricts the High Court's jurisdiction with respect to determination of basic law and its interpretation. So these are the reforms, and these are being protested.
No, in India, government is also talking about the reforms in judicial appointments, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, do you foresee that there can be a similar kind of protest in India if government brings those kind of reforms?
So I don't think so, primarily because I don't believe that the government would actually bring in such stark reforms which restrict the judiciary's power overall. And secondly, judiciary is overall very powerful with respect to its judicial review powers and judicial activism power. So any such amendment that is brought forth, it can be struck down if it's ultra vires the constitution. So I don't think that such a scenario is possible in India.
You see, in present times, it is being said that the economic development of India is improving at a very fast pace. But you see, the social development is not taking at equally the fast pace. You see, there have been so much instances of vigilantism, riots, even the judiciary asking the central government to take proper steps against hate speech. Do you think this economic development will be sustainable if there is no social development at the same time?
So first and foremost, I believe that the definition of economic development in itself, it should entail the elements of social development. So, and for economic development to be effective, it's really important to actually contextualize the local and social problems and integrate them into the economic solutions as well. For example, a very wonderful scheme, Amrit Dharohar, as has been recently introduced in the union budget, it is tackling the problem of communal disharmony, and it is also making sure that employment is available. So I think there should be a consonance between the two.
Okay. You come from Center for Policy Research.
Yes, sir.
You tell us what's the difference between policy and strategy?
So, I might be wrong, but I believe strategy is more of an uh, informal guideline towards achieving a certain goal, and policy has certain strict guidelines, certain strict rules which have to be followed. However, so if for the literal the differences between the two, I'll have to be more sure of it.
Please.
Yes, sir.
Tell us something about legacy waste.
So legacy waste is all form of discarded waste, which is partially decomposed and has a mixture of plastic, glass, electronic, and other kinds of waste.
Tell us something about the political developments in Nepal and how will it affect India?
So Nepal is currently headed by a 10-party coalition under Prime Minister Prachanda, and there has been an element of political instability. There have been continuous no confidence motions being brought in. And apart from that, I believe that currently it's very important for India to maintain good ties with Nepal, so that it doesn't become another theater of conflict with China. So this is the current stance, I believe.
Okay. Tell me the difference between geoeconomics, geostrategy, and geopolitics.
So geoeconomics is overall multilateral economic cooperation. Geostrategy is overall the foreign policies of several countries coming into interplay with each other. So geopolitics is again the domestic politics as well as the international politics in interplay.
Okay. My last question, tell us something how the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean is changing and what role India has to play in it.
So Indian Ocean currently, the Indo-Pacific is emerging as the biggest geostrategic and geopolitical theater. And several countries, Japan, Australia, they are vouching for free and open Indo-Pacific. And as far as India is concerned, India has made certain policy regulations in place. For example, Sagar. Sagar is there, and then India is also vouching to become net security provider in Indian Ocean. And all of these steps are being taken to deter the Chinese incursion primarily in the Indo-Pacific arena. So this is the current stance overall.
So use this time to update yourself, to collect more information, increase the content, and go confidently. I'm sure you should be able to do it well. All the best.
Nothing very specific from my side, Vidushi. Keep yourself updated with the current affairs. You are really confident, and the way you communicate is really good. You should not overdo anything. You're just, your approach is rightly balanced. Just keep yourself updated with the current affairs. That's it. That's all from my side.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Udresh?
Nothing from my side, sir. All the best. You are doing absolutely well in interview. I think you will score very good marks in interview. All the best.
Okay. So just one thing I wanted to ask. So this is my second mock, and in the first mock, I was told that I give a lot of context and I spoke for a very long while. So I wanted to know if that is going overboard or anything.
Nothing.
I think I didn't feel anything of that kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only thing, it is always
Absolutely nothing.
nice to be brief and to the point. There is no harm in that. So if you think you're giving unnecessary detailed answers while a brief answer is needed, I think that you can be careful about. That's all. But apparently in this interview, I didn't feel anything of that kind.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so
All
much.
the best. All the best.
Thank
All
you,
the best.
sir.